Okay, and just a reminder for everyone on the phone, this meeting is recorded and the recording just started. Again, we're just waiting a few more minutes for everyone to join. All right, just a couple more minutes. We're still waiting on a few voting members so that we can have a quorum. And we'll do a roll call in just a second as well. Right. All right, so Senator Davis, if you don't mind, I can go ahead with a roll call before we get started. So I'm going to go down the list and call your name. And just for the recording and for the public who are watching this on Facebook Live, please just respond yes. So I'll give you a few seconds to unmute yourself. If you're on the phone, usually it's *6 to unmute. Otherwise, if you're on your computer at the bottom left of your screen, if you move your mouse, there'll be a mute and an unmute button. So I'm going to just start at the top with our voting members. And again, if you're here, just say yes, and then I'll move down to the next person. Allison Einerson. Okay. We're going to excuse Bjorn Carlson. Senator Davis.
Here.
Gina Cornea.
Here.
Brad Belknap in place of Heather Borski.
Yes.
Jordan Riley. Okay. Kelsey Hall.
Yes.
Okay. Logan Wild or Kelly Pearson.
Yes, I'm here.
Representative Polson. Okay. Representative Handy.
Yes.
For some reason you're echoing. Let's see. Looks like I've got you on our list twice. See, you're on mute. Okay. And then Dale Newton. Okay. Ashley Patterson. Ruby Ward. Colleen Dick. Thought I saw her on here. Colleen, are you here? I see that you're logged on.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, perfect.
Sorry.
Cimbria, oh, it's okay. Cimbria Patterson. Okay. And Reagan Emmons.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the top of the list. There's a few cell phone numbers. Number beginning with 385 and ending in 69. Okay. Number beginning in 435 and ending in 22. Okay, and just remember, if you're on the phone, it's *6 to unmute. Phone number beginning in 801 and ending in 05.
Sorry, that was Cimbria. I didn't know how to unmute myself.
Oh, yeah, *6. Sorry, you guys. Perfect. Thanks,
I'm
Cimbria.
Zoom, but Google's a new world. So wait,
Too
how do I
many
mute
plat-
myself again?
*6 should mute you again as well.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, and then we have Carrie from the Farm Service Agency.
Yes, I'm here,
Perfect.
Kelly.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We have Hannah Martin from Utah Department of Health.
Yes.
Perfect. Heidi Brooks, also from Farm Service Agency. And then we have Jack Wilbur.
I'm here.
Perfect.
Hey,
Jared.
I'm here. This is Heidi Brooks. I didn't
Heidi.
unmute mine.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks again for
Thank
being here.
you.
Okay, we've got Jared Waite, who is our UDAF staff helping us with Facebook Live today. Let's see. And Kyle, is it Hollingshed? Is that your last name?
Yeah.
Perfect. And Laura Holtrip Cole.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Melissa Ure.
Yes, I'm here. Ed is also on the line, but we'll get him here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Natalie Lutz. Okay, I have one unknown caller, so if I haven't called your name, go ahead and just let us know.
Sorry,
Oh, Natalie.
I unmute.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, and anybody else I missed on the line?
This is Kate from USB.
Okay, perfect. All right, so that should give us 6. I expect we'll have a few other board members that join us. And so we should be good to go, Senator Davis.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Thank you, Kelly. Welcome, everybody, to another virtual meeting this afternoon. Don't know how long this is going to last, but probably a couple of more, maybe the entire year. To begin with, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a motion?
This is
Second?
Gina.
I think I heard a second. All those in favor say aye. Unmute and say aye, or just raise your hand and wave.
Yeah, and I think we got a motion from Gina. Did we get a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
I believe we did have a second. I thought I heard that. Do we have a second?
Yeah, second, Representative Handy.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, now all those in favor say aye or wave
Aye.
your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
If there's anyone opposed, please say so. Not hearing any opposition, I say that the minutes are passed. And as in the past, we'll now move forward. And I believe what we want to do is introduce a new member and welcome him. It's from the Farm Bureau. And is he on the line? Dale Newton?
He's supposed to be, but he said he may have had a conflict. So he said just to go ahead with the vote. And if he's not able to join, he'll give his introduction later.
Well, why don't we wait and hold off on that until he is here so that he's present at the time that we vote. I'd much rather do it that way. Okay, and next item of business, I believe, is our annual public meeting discussion. Is that right?
Senator Davis, we have to move forward on the USDA discussion. They have to jump off the call. So item number 2, we need to move before that.
Okay. All right, let's listen to the USDA, the Department of Ag. And that would be?
So we're Carrie Sun and Heidi Brooks from the USDA Farm Service. They're here to talk to us specifically about the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. So if you guys want to go ahead, that would be great.
Great, thank you.
Okay, this is Carrie Sun. I'm a farm program specialist with the Farm Service Agency here in Utah. And we are administering the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. It's had a lot of publicity nationally. I did email some reports to Callie. I don't know if that was in time for you to send them out to anybody else. But in summary, we're being told that nationally, this has been appropriated at about $16 billion for payments directly to the farmers. And what this is for the COVID suppressed prices on particular commodities. So different commodities were deemed to be eligible, and there is a process then for applying and receiving a payment to make up for, no fault of their own, the lost prices that would have been received for many of our agricultural commodities. Nationally, we have issued at this time over $4 billion of the appropriated $16 billion. The sign up started May 26th. It will go through August 28th. We're issuing 80% of the projected total payment to ensure that the $16 billion will not be breached before the end of the sign-up period. We anticipate the other 20% will be made. To this point in Utah, I just pulled the figures together. So there has been $33.4 million issued to Utah farmers. The number of farmers that have applied for the CFAP program and been approved and or in the process of being approved and paid totals 1,776 participants, producers here in Utah have already at least started their applications or been approved and paid. And I've been working for the Farm Service Agency in Utah for 35 years. This is by far the largest single program that we've administered and paid to Utah farmers in that 35 years of experience, to my knowledge. So it came at a time when our local county offices are not open to the public, so we've had to take the initiative to do these signups, make these payments over the phone, by mail, through email. And so I think we've made payments in every county in Utah, and we have producers signed up in every county. There's lots of information on the CFAP program. We direct people to farmers.gov/CFAP, and there you'll find the national payment numbers. You'll find fact sheets for the program in general and a fact sheet for individual crops and commodities that are covered by CFAP. All the information, eligibility, as well as the general application form. So if you have questions, I would be glad to entertain any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Gene, I have a couple of questions.
Representative Handy.
Yeah, thanks. Kerry, that's very interesting. I had seen some emails from USDA come across my desk, and I wanted to have this on the agenda today to understand this. But those are quite the numbers: 33.4 million to Utah farmers, 1,776 participants. Either have been funded or somewhere along in the pipeline. The question I have is, I've also had some emails about a program called the Food Box. Do you know anything about the Food Box?
Yeah,
Dr. Hall does. But I'd like to understand that too, how that's being used and impacting Utahns as well. Gina, you might know about Food Box as well, but anyway.
Yeah, I could see that there was a lot of discussion on your agenda about the Food Box program. That program is being administered by Agricultural Marketing Service, a different agency in USDA. And so we are not directly involved. In my email that I sent Callie, I gave a link to the specific page in their website where it describes that program in more detail. But we don't administer the program. I know it's been appropriated under the General CARES Act for $3 billion compared to the $16 billion for direct payments to farmers, for a total of $19 billion. And they are in the process of buying particular commodities that can then be reboxed, donated through food banks and school lunch supplies. And so there's lots of information on the AMS website about it.
And I'll send those links that he sent me in the documents he sent after the meeting.
Terrific. That was just kind of the background that I needed, and Kelsey knows a lot about it. And do you have anything to add, Kelsey, about that now?
Not really in particular. I understand just the breakdowns of how much fresh fruit and vegetables, how many dairy products, and how many meat products, and then how the box will be a combination of those items. And then many a times what they're trying to do is transport them to the food banks, the community faith-based organizations and nonprofit organizations, so they can be distributed to the residents in that state. I just have a few contacts that happen to work at AMS through my communications experience with the USDA. So they've put out a little bit of information I could share, but it seems like it's purchasing that way, which is a very different effort than what our food assistance program is doing to help our farmers directly.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions, Representative? Thank you. I did have one question on this, and that is the small producers in the state of Utah. How are they being affected by this farm thing? I know we've got some small producers that are probably online because they're members of the committee. Are you aware of this program, and have you applied, or is there any problems with it? Don't hear any-
I'm
Oh,
not
sure.
aware of it, Senator. I just been keeping my nose down, just doing what I do, and I guess I haven't been made aware of it. But I don't know if it would apply to me, to somebody our size operation or anything anyway. But no, that hasn't impacted me at all.
That's what I'm wondering. Who does this affect? Only the big producers, or does this help those small folks that are probably being impacted at the farmers markets and places like that?
I saw Jordan Riley jump on. Maybe Jordan, are you still there, has a perspective?
Senator Davis, this is Cimbria Patterson. I don't know if Jordan's on there, but here's a statistic. Small farm sales are up nationwide 750%.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So
Some people
now,
are-
if you're a restaurant if you were a small farm and all your accounts were with restaurants, you would be in a completely different situation. Or if you were involved in a farmer's market, like the Salt Lake market went down due to the earthquake, actually. But a lot of, it's very spotty. Some farmers markets never stopped, some opened, and some didn't. So it would just depend on, and some of them pivoted and turned into drop sites or online orders. But nationwide, that is the last statistic that was given.
Thank you. And so this covers, I assume this program covers the small guy as well as the big producer.
Well, for example, Senator Hannity, no, you're Senator, well, I forgot your name and I can't see it on
Davis.
the screen. Davis?
Yes.
For example, we joined with Utah State, give a webinar to the Navajo Nation, and I think there were a few other reservations that joined in. Primarily, they're small sheep producers, but they're entitled to sign up and for the wool program, as well as any lambs or sheep under 2 years old that were in their inventory or sold during January 15th to April 15th. It affects all of the beef cattle in Utah. So everybody that has beef cattle is a livestock producer is affected in Utah, regardless of the size. The dairies, a lot of the smaller dairies have long gone out of business. But there were, it affected the milk industry pretty significantly. Some of the larger payments went to the larger dairies, but they were subject to a payment limitation. So their total loss was not covered, at least in this first $16 billion. But, there's no, we've done reach out even to small producers. Utah State joined with FSA and presented a webinar for Utah producers, regardless of size. And I'm thinking that that webinar was recorded and is available at Utah State's website. So we've done our own individual webinars as part of our public reach out to bring in people that haven't been in the FSA office before. Anybody that has livestock, dairy, sheep, regardless of the number, is eligible for this program and eligible for a payment by head or by the number sold during a certain period of time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, let's move forward with the agenda. I believe now it's the open meetings portion and training that we need to go through. And so who's going to conduct that?
Melissa.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I'll try and make this as painless and quick as possible. Get you your check in the box for the year. There hasn't been a whole lot of change in this last legislative season that's going to affect this body. So again, the reminders and takeaways are that always remember that the Open Public Meeting Act requires public bodies to take their actions openly and deliberate and open so the public can see the process. Anytime that you get together and you have a quorum present, even if that's a workshop or an executive session, technically that is a meeting. And as a meeting, it should be noticed properly under the Open Public Meetings Act. As a reminder, as to what a quorum is and is not, there's two ways that the law defines a quorum. One is that it's a simple majority if your founding statute does not declare what a quorum is, which dovetails into the second way, which is that your statute says this is what a quorum is. On occasion, you will have meetings where you don't have a quorum. It's best to check with your counsel real quick if you want to continue with the meeting as a discussion only or if you want to reschedule. The important takeaway is that if a decision is made to continue the meeting as a discussion only, don't take any action. And make sure that it is on the record so that people can go back in your subsequent meeting when you do take action and listen to your discussions on it. Today's environment with the COVID, things are a little bit different. The takeaway on the latest round of things is that you still do have to have the anchor location, which is what we have for this meeting, and the opportunity for the public to still be able to be present, even though it's not physically, and be able to hear what's going on. There's no absolute right for a citizen attending a meeting to have the opportunity to speak. They can be given that opportunity so long as you treat everybody the same. I know, so you guys are good there, and we are, some of that has been suspended because of COVID. Again, you have to provide your written notice, basically saying, this is when we're going to hold the meeting, this is when we're going to hold the meeting. You have to do it 24 hours prior to the meeting, and your notice has to include, with reasonable specificity, what it is you're going to talk about, what it is you're actually going to take action on. You're going to have to list the date, time, and the place of where the meeting is going to be. The notice requirements have not changed. You still have to put it on the public notice website. You still have to post the notice at the entrance of the anchor location in this instance. That has kind of been waylaid with the governor's action on COVID, but traditionally you would put that. Remember that there is a very narrow scope for reasons that you can go into a closed meeting. It has to fall under sections 204, 205, or 206. You can discuss an individual's character, professional competence, physical health or mental health. Collective bargaining can be done in a closed meeting. If somebody said, I am going to sue you, or has actually sued you, you can close your meeting to discuss your litigation strategy and to get legal advice. Security systems. Also, if you have an employee who has been accused of misconduct, those proceedings and discussions can remain in a closed session. The important takeaway for this also is that you have to be careful in your closed meetings. You can talk about specifically the reason that you went into the closed meeting and that narrow scope only. There might be other things that may or may not be appropriate to discuss in a closed meeting, but if that's not what you declare the purpose of the closed meeting, you shouldn't go into that territory. You can't hold straw polls and decide this is how we're going to vote, just rubber stamp it. And you can't take final actions in that closed meeting. The action actually has to, as well as the debate, has to happen on the record. We still have to make sure that the recording is immediately posted to the public notice website. Your minutes, prior to them being approved, would be posted as draft until you can meet again and get your approved written minutes up. What you have to have in your minutes again, this is just a refresher. Again, date, time, place of meeting, all of the members present, and listening to the meeting so far, you guys have all done that. The names and substance of information that anybody from the outside, somebody who's not on the board, a governing body, provides, get copies of their handouts, have a summary of what their testimony was. You need to be, especially where this is an electronic meeting these days, it's important to keep the individual votes on each matter, who voted yes and who voted no, because people can't necessarily see what's going on and they're going to be listening to the recording. Having that name attached to the yes or the no makes it clear for the public. That pretty much gets you back up to speed, other than, please don't violate the law. And if you do, you can cure it by going back and re-voting and rediscussing and doing things the right way. If it was an intentional act, and in 15 years of doing ethics, I can't think of a single time that any public official has actually been charged with a crime. But technically, it's on the books as a Class B misdemeanor if you intentionally violate the Open Public Meeting Act. So that's it, unless you guys got questions.
Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any. So thank you. Appreciate that update.
Welcome.
So now we know how to conduct our meeting in an open way. Okay, now we want to, next on the agenda is to take a look at what happened during this recent session that ended, it seems like a year ago, but it's only been about 3 months. And a report on that. Let me see, I'm trying to get my agenda up here, but Kelly, why don't you go ahead and introduce our next guest?
Yeah, so first we'll get an update from Natalie Lutz from the Utah Department of Health on the Utah produce incentives.
Great, thanks, Callie. So I can just provide a quick update. We have launched our Double Up Food Bucks season in farmers markets. Just want to say thanks to everybody who really pushed to help get farmers markets to open and to make sure that we had clear guidelines in place for how to make them safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've had, I think, at this point, all of our markets that were intended to open are going to be opening. We'll have Double Up Food Bucks operating in 23 different markets this summer, which is really exciting. And a lot of those have already gotten off the ground, more starting later in July and August. So we're really looking forward to this season. And I guess one update with that is that we were able to increase our incentive amount from $20 maximum to $30. We chose to do that because we know that with COVID and all of the unemployment and increase in food insecurity, we thought that increasing the amount would be helpful this season. So we're really interested to see what that looks like in comparison to last season and the $20 increase. We'll be starting our program evaluation at some point later this summer, which will include tracking all of our incentive distribution and redemption, as well as doing some surveys with participants coming in and out of the market. We're also going to be tracking how customers heard about the market to really understand what marketing efforts are the most effective, which is something that we haven't done in depth before. So we're really looking forward to that. Let's see if Hannah, am I missing anything in terms of Double Up Food Bucks? I guess in terms of grocery, we're still working with Rancho Markets to get grocery off of the ground. Because of COVID, obviously their priorities were focused more on just keeping their grocery store thriving, and so we had some delays with that, but we're still working with them, and hopefully we'll be getting that up and running this summer. And starting to pursue working with other grocery stores to implement Double Up Food Bucks as well. Gina, do you have a question?
Well, maybe just some ancillary updates.
Yeah.
Utah's Hunger got a contract from DWS to fund farmers markets who are interested in taking SNAP, and we finally worked out all the details with DWS, and checks are going out to 6 markets next week, including the IRC's GOAT project, where refugee families can purchase a halal slaughtered goat for their families. Utah was also approved for online purchasing for SNAP. I think and it's great, and it will increase access to food. However, the only 2 retailers right now that are ready to take online purchases are Walmart and Amazon. So local grocery stores will have to go through the process to be certified to take online purchases. And I've reached out to Dave Davis to see, how we can help them do that. And then also starting in July, Representative Handy, I believe you and I had a conversation about this, is pandemic EBT, which is the school meal benefits that families will be given on a EBT card. That will launch in July, and it'll be $308 per student for the period between when school closed in March through the end of May. And they'll be able to automatically match about 60,000 students whose families currently receive SNAP. And then they're going to have an application process for another 159,000 students who are either on reduced price meals or free meals but do not participate in SNAP. Utah's Against Hunger is meeting with DWS on Monday about their communication plan, and Utah's Against Hunger also got some funding from United Way to pay for a bunch of outreach stuff. So if you are interested in helping us do that, please send me an email. My email is Cornia, CORNIA, @uah.org.
Thanks, Gina. Yeah, that's really awesome. And yeah, in terms of the online SNAP, we're definitely staying on top of that. Right now, working with Walmart and Amazon doesn't necessarily go with our current program, but we're hoping to see that potentially expand to grocery stores, local grocery stores in Utah. So we'll definitely be staying on top of that, because that would be fantastic for access for our program. I think that's all the updates I have right now, unless Brad or Hannah can think of anything I'm neglecting. But we've been really busy, and we're really excited that everything is shaping up the way it is this season. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Kate Wheeler. Is Kate on board today?
I am. Hi, everyone.
Gene, before we go to Kate, can I ask a question of Natalie?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, sorry. Hey, Natalie, that was terrific. So what we have, remember, we have 400,000 ongoing. How much do you anticipate, where you bumped it from that 20 to 30, do you anticipate using the entire budget in this harvest season? What do you think?
Yeah, so, and I'd have to, I'm happy to get exact budget numbers, or maybe Brad has a better idea of what they are exactly, but we are going to be rolling over some of our budget into the next, I guess we end June 30th, and so we will be rolling some of our budget over. Just the delays with COVID this spring, and the grocery store not getting off the ground yet, and some of the markets delaying their start has, caused us to not be able to spend the full amount out throughout this first year. But we're definitely hoping by the end of the season that we're, again, this is a weird summer, so we don't know how things are going to go. But we're hoping that, we'll be spending most of that out by the end of the season for sure. And I'm happy to keep you guys updated with that as we're going forward.
Yeah, that was my question. Thanks a lot, Natalie.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions for Natalie? Not seeing or hearing any. Let's go then to the education and see where the food is and how we're going to get that food out.
All right. Hi, everyone. Kate here. So last time we had talked about how it would be really good to have some data about how the pandemic had affected school purchasing, and if this funding that we had asked for would have been helpful. So I sent a survey out to all of our schools that did emergency feeding, asking them if they had any difficulties sourcing their required meal components, and then if they had purchased anything that was Utah grown during that emergency meal service to serve, and what their barriers were. So that first question, I think we got really solid answers to. Basically 77% of our districts and charters that were serving emergency meals had trouble getting one or more of the required items. Then the survey results kind of fell apart. I was really surprised. I was looking at it, and almost half of them said they had bought Utah grown stuff, which I was like, that's amazing. And then I started looking at what they said they bought, and it didn't make sense. People said they bought grapefruit or fresh sweet corn in March. So I reached out to everyone who said, yes, they bought locally, or they bought, and specifically Utah grown was what we asked them, to just follow up. And I was not able to get in touch with everybody, but most of the people that I followed up with had not actually bought any Utah items. So I don't know how that got misinterpreted. But yeah, some of them said things like, well, I know my distributor gets local things when they can, so I said yes. Or yeah, some of them just, I don't know where the grapefruit yes came from. Honestly, that one was just just interesting. So really, out of the people that I was really able to confirm that they bought local Utah grown stuff, it was mostly apples. And Davis School District actually bought our best turkey, which is shocking because they are not usually one of our friend school leaders. So that part was exciting. I guess the takeaway there, and out of the people that I was able to confirm bought local, all but one of them said that they bought much less, or a few of them said the same as they normally would have. I just don't think we can pull any really good statistics out of that because the responses were so unreliable. I do think we have some good anecdotes we could pull out. One of our charter schools that does buy local apples every week said they stopped that delivery because they were worried about their money. But I think maybe overall we just have to figure out a way to kind of tell our story without having some really solid statistics, because I don't know how to get the schools to, I don't know where that fell apart. The questions were pretty straightforward. So I don't know if they thought they were telling me what I wanted to hear or what went on there. I know we also just have a really, there's still just a lack of kind of understanding among a lot of them of what we mean when we talk about local food. I had a lot of the ones that didn't buy anything locally still told me they didn't because we don't have farms. And that is something I've been pushing back against since I started this job. And I don't know what the solution to that might be, but I do think that needs to be part of the solution, is just that massive outreach and education piece of it. Like, there are farmers in your community, they are growing the food that you're buying or that you could be buying, or growing the same items as you're buying. This is why this is a benefit. So I just got those results on Monday, so I haven't had a ton of time to kind of digest what that might mean. But that might be something else, like another project that we're looking at or doing, is just maybe we need a lot more education about who are our Utah farmers and what do they do and where are they in your community.
I think probably the one thing is they bought from a local seller of produce, and took that as Utah because it was local. And so probably we need to reach down a little bit deeper and maybe take a look at what's available when from Utah producers, and then ask that question more directly. And it brings up the issue, I think, of the food hub and that importance. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I thought.
No, that's really helpful. I think that is something that we're trying to do, and we're trying to start a harvest of this season campaign with the schools to get them to understand kind of what's available when. But the distributor's point was actually the other thing I was going to bring up, because I did, when a few of them were like, oh, I got local peaches from my distributor. You didn't. So I called a couple of our distributors and just chatted with them about what was going on. And they said, no, absolutely not. But also a concern, and maybe this is something that we want to just set aside and talk about later when there's open discussion, a concern that they're having for school feeding in the fall. And we may or may not decide this is relevant to the group, but we don't know obviously what school's going to look like this fall. We do know there's going to be school meals in some form, whether how the kids are attending, they're kind of figuring out that side of it right now. We also know that those meals are going to largely need to be packaged. Even if the kids are eating in school, they're probably either going to be sent to their classrooms, or even if they're coming through the cafeteria, anything on the salad bar needs to be prepackaged. Like, they can't just be self-serving. So the schools have been having a lot of trouble buying materials to package in. And the distributors basically also said they don't have the capacity to pre-pack things and sell them, and to do little like 2-ounce bags of baby carrots or anything like that, because they don't have the equipment and the ability to keep up with that demand. So I just wanted to flag that as a potential issue that it may or may not tie in with our local issue, but it's definitely something connected to getting kind of those fresh products to the kids.
Thank you. I believe, Gina, you had some questions you wanted to raise. Your mute's on. I noticed you sent some questions, and so I was just wondering if you wanted to raise those.
I was clarifying for Hannah what the period of time was for PEDT, but Utahns Against Hunger is working, and maybe the local advisory committee would consider writing a letter to the U.S. Secretary Perdue. Given the uncertainty of what is happening with schools in the fall, and that kids may or may not be there every day, we would really like to see the pandemic EDT program extended, so that if we get to a point where kids aren't in school, that we don't have to try and work to get pandemic EDT sort of re-implemented. There's a lot of work going into that now, and it would just be really beneficial if it were extended through the end of the year.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that is important. We really do need to make sure we continue the nutrition through the schools throughout this pandemic. And I think this local school districts have been doing a pretty good job throughout this entire time, and the food banks and everything else. I mean, this has really been a challenge, I think, for food for families, and thank heavens we do have the ability through the schools to be able to have a nutrition program that can be extended into families. So, anything else?
Senator Davis,
Yes.
can we also get a update on SNAP EBT and online ordering?
Do we, Gina, do you want to?
Yeah.
It is my understanding that, well, pandemic EBT is going to be implemented in July, and it'll go out in 2 waves. One, the first benefits will go out to families who are currently receiving SNAP, and then there'll be an application for those who are not. And all those benefits have to be issued by the end of September. There will be an open enrollment period from about mid-July to the end of August, and then they'll issue those benefits. They'll do an issuance every 2 weeks to the families who are eligible. And then online purchasing is also supposed to start by the end of July. As I mentioned earlier, right now the only authorized retailers are Amazon and Walmart. And I'm sure that Dave Davis is working diligently to get our local retailers on board.
And so in that case, once it's available for online ordering, then all authorized retailers, if they also offer online ordering, would be able to accept it?
No, it is a separate authorization for online specifically. They have to meet certain criteria. Because Amazon and Walmart were part of the original pilot, they were able to get authorized, but there have been problems with the different SNAP processors. Utah's is Conduent, and they are now, I think Arizona and Texas or some other states that have been approved for online purchasing. There's FIS and a couple of others, but those online those EBT processors are playing a little bit of catch up because there was such demand for online ordering that they really accelerated bringing on additional states, and the pilot states aren't even finished with their pilots yet. So they're just approving states as they can. And then once they're authorized, Walmart and Amazon will be available, and then they'll hopefully those retailers will get guidance from FNS from Food and Nutrition Services on how to get authorized to take online payments.
Okay, that makes sense. So probably a little ways out for smaller retailers.
Yeah, and I've reached out to Dave Davis to see, what he's hearing about local retailers. And of course, we're really excited that people are going to be able to use their benefits online, but we're also really concerned that it's only Walmart and Amazon. We'd like to see our local retailers be able to take advantage of that. There's about $30 million a month in food stamp benefits that people spend, and they should, have access to that.
There's one thing is it's the local stores that really buy local and sell local. So I really believe that's important. Reagan, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that online ordering is possible with EBT and SNAP, but you just have to pick it up in person. You can't pay online with your SNAP. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that distinction. So I don't know how if that's a possibility for retailers right now, but they can definitely order online. You just can't pay online.
Well, and part of that is the whole Instacart, as acting as an intermediary. And I mean, one of the things that we were trying to find out is if there were retail, they could even do delivery if they have a wireless point of sale machine. They could go to someone's house and deliver it, and then somebody who's on SNAP could just run their card then. But I have not heard of anybody doing that.
So Smith's is doing that. They're not. I don't know if they're doing the pay upon
Delivery.
Yeah, but they are offering an option to pay to order online with
Right,
and then pay during pickup.
right. I was talking specifically about the delivery.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's doing that.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Reagan. Anything further from?
Reagan, you did put in the chat about the 3 farmers markets. Did you want to talk about that quickly, or?
I don't need to take up a lot of time. I just wanted to so all of the, as far as I know, and Natalie pretty much said this too, that all the markets that were planning on offering SNAP and EBT and Double Up Food Box are opening this year. 3 markets that don't currently offer that service have decided not to open due to the pandemic. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then there's a handful of other markets that are not opening this year, and I'm trying to figure out why. If it's because of I don't want to just make the assumption that they're closing due to COVID, because there's a lot of other reasons they could be closing. So I will, if people are interested in that, I can provide an update about that at the next meeting or send it out at some point in time.
Thank you. What are the 3 that you know are not opening? Which ones are those? Have you got that?
Yeah, it's the Park Silly market, the VA, the farmers market at the VA, and the University of Utah student-run farmers market, which is a fall market. Park Silly market didn't really have a lot of produce, but they do have some. So they announced pretty early on that they were not going to open.
I wonder if it's regulations that they have of people having to stand in line and moving through, and the distancing and social distancing. And then, of course, it's directly food, and it's not the other items that are usually offered for sale at the markets. The craft items.
Yeah, Park Silly relies pretty heavily on their entertainment. So I think that's the reason why they chose not to open, because that's their main draw other than produce.
Yeah, I think they felt like it was not feasible. So
yeah, but there still is the Summit County Farmers Market run through the local health department there that will be opening, I believe, next week or the week after. So,
and the Park City Farmers Market.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
And 2, Senator Davis, one thing we needed to announce is that Reagan Emmons is actually now our newest non-voting member as well.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on board on a regular basis. Thank you. We look forward to your participation.
Thanks so much. I'm really glad to be a part of this group.
Thank you. Okay, anything else from education?
I don't really have anything else. I guess just to kind of close the loop on what I was saying with I do have something else actually now that I'm moving my mouth. I think a lot of what I did hear from the schools does really support that food hub need also, because one of the things, they've been working their butts off to do this emergency feeding, and it's really hard because they're trying to minimize the amount of staff that they have in any place at any given time also. And so that was definitely one of the barriers, was like, well, I can't, even if normally I'd be willing to bring in a lot of raw product and process it, I definitely can't right now because we're working the bare minimum of staff. And so really that idea that they need to be able to order stuff that's kind of ready to get and go, and that's pretty hard to do with local food right now. So I just think just another data point in support of we need some kind of local food processing and distribution solution. And then, beyond that, I'm just really open to people's ideas for, how we can, I think that lack of awareness about Utah farms and why they're important is a big barrier. I think both when we're asking for this money, but also just among our schools. I think if we get this funding, the schools who are buying locally already will do a lot more of it. I don't necessarily think it's going to bring in a lot of the ones who just think we don't have farms. So I would be interested in ideas or ways that people think that like maybe the group could help contribute to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it, Kate. Okay, let's move to the next item on the legislative update, and that is the, let's see if I can call up my agenda here. Okay, there we go. It's Kelly Pearson and the Food Hub Startup Fund.
Thank you, Senator Davis. I think I gave an update last time. The Food Hub was about middle of the pack in priority, just due to lack of general fund funding. It did not get funded. However, even if it probably did get funded, as the representatives all know, they pretty much took away all of one-time funding due to the COVID cuts just last week anyway. So I think we would have got it taken away from us for sure. But it's sad because there's no better time to show how important the Food Hub is than it is right now. As Kate was saying, I think a lot of school districts and local farmers see how important the Food Hub concept would benefit everybody right now. But I think we're going to see a hard battle. I think the next few years, you'll just see building blocks of people or agencies asking for the money back that was cut due to the COVID thing. So I think we have maybe a hard sell to get funding for the Food Hub. Sorry to be doom and gloom, but I don't know what you think, Representative Handy, on that.
Well, Commissioner, for sure, legislators aren't focused on this. I mean, Senator Davis and I are, Representative Polson to some extent, but no one's thinking about this. We're just trying to get through through all of the debacle of COVID and the cuts and 25 bills last Thursday. And don't you think, Gene? I mean, nobody's thinking about this yet. We'll just have to let the waters calm. And we're trying to, what we'd like to do is to get on, when we get back to working in August, is get on the, I'm going to work to do that. We're going to work to do that. Get on the Natural Resources and Ag Standing Committee agenda and just take a few minutes and see if we can provide some education about this again, and also about food to farm to schools.
I'm wondering, thinking outside the box here for a moment, with all of the federal dollars for agriculture that are out there and trying to make sure that we're getting food to people, I wonder if there's any federal dollars that could help us begin the Food Hub. Maybe a grant to get it up off the ground or something.
I really like that thought, Senator Davis. We're going to have to look into that for sure. I think most of the grants out there right now are going right to the producers, but if there's a way to make it into some type of infrastructure or even a virtual food hub, yeah, that's a great thought.
It would help also, the Food Hub also, because the concept is there that also manufacturing is part of that. Yeah. Where you can take some of this produce, some of this products, agricultural products from the state of Utah, and turn them into something that is long-term beneficial for everybody, whether it be to do what the old Del Monte was, which was to can locally and sell it, or that kind of a concept idea that a Food Hub would really be instrumental, I think, in making sure that we can get food out to people and that it's available through the schools, through the food banks, and elsewhere.
I think we would fail miserably if we didn't take the lessons we learned from this COVID. And I think Food Hub is definitely high on the priority. And, we have a shortness in meat packing plants and other areas. If we didn't take those and share that and hopefully fix those gaps in our food supply. And so, yes, we definitely need to share that story and find ways to fix the food supply gaps that we have.
Well, it makes for an additional compelling argument, Kelly. It really does. You know, I mean, it kind of dropped in our laps like, yeah, see?
Yeah, exactly. The other good thing is, I mean, to give a positive, I don't know if everyone's been watching the Farmers Feeding Utah program that Farm Bureau started. We've been a big pusher of it, but we've been able to buy local food and give it to the people that are in need locally. And they've done 2 big projects, one down on the Navajo reservation where they took a lot of live sheep and frozen meat and vegetables and flour. And then last Tuesday, we were in Logan, Cache Valley, and took another $150,000 worth of local food. So great project. If you guys can push it out, they're still trying to do more projects going forward. So it's a win-win for everyone. Kind of the same thing we've been trying to do at the Food Hub, but Farm Bureau is just doing it on their own. So.
This would be so instrumental, the Food Hub, as we take a look at Utah's own and trying to grow. I've seen the advertisements that you're doing with Utah's own and everything. And I'll tell you, I take a look at that, and it just seems that this is the way we grow it. This, I think, Representative Handy, not to speak for you, but on our whole idea of putting together this committee was really to get these things going and finding a way to make local food available and handy for everyone.
Senator Davis and Representative Handy, I don't know if it would help, but the Wallace Center and Renwalk and the Kellogg Foundation are all organizations that have grant support, that have announced RFAs over the years to fund food hubs around the country. And we may want to follow some of their listservs and announcements for the calls for those RFAs. I have seen other states, including Ohio, Oklahoma, Michigan, receive funding from those foundations to establish their food hub.
But that money generally isn't given to states. It's given to organizations that already have an establishment.
So like I want to say Sabra, but that would not be accurate. The organization that would want to start that food hub would be able to help facilitate those funds rather than having it go through a government agency and our legislature. I'm seeing a lot of success out of North Carolina, Texas, Florida, Oregon, Oklahoma, around the country with that model instead of the one we've approached.
It may be something we want to look into and explore a little bit deeper. So, thank you, Kelsey. Kelly, is that about it, or did you have more?
No, that's it. If anyone has any questions, but thank you for letting us present.
Thank you. Okay, Allison, are you there? Rio Grande Permanent Market.
This is Callie. She sent a message. She had to leave for another meeting, but she just sent a message she wanted me to read. So she just said, I have no updates on the public market at this time. The future is unknown. Still don't have a definitive answer on when the Rio Grande Depot will be fully repaired. They're saying late fall.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that, giving us that update. Okay, moving on to the agenda, ag land preservation, as we look at our council work groups and what's going on there on ag land. Bjorn, are you there?
So you guys are going to hear from me a few times today. COVID has taken the attendance of a few of our members, and they've asked me to speak on their behalf. And Bjorn said I could go ahead and share why he couldn't be here, because it is an issue that is pertinent to our previous discussion. But the obviously the meat processing has been a big discussion, and he was able to get his meat to a few other places here locally. And the Gary's Meats, who he was processing through, they've shut down for 2 weeks, as some of you probably already know, because of COVID. So he actually had to kind of emergency. He was given a very short notice that he had to get to Colorado to process his cows. So he's on his way to Colorado right now so he can get that meat processed. So he wanted me to share that. And kind of as part of ag land preservation. So this is our smallest group, and they're really still trying to figure out how they want to approach this with the small numbers. Overall, they want to do some research on who the partners are in ag land preservation and what people are currently working on. So really, they just want a situational awareness of, who's working on it, who's working against it, and they want to work on identifying some of the gaps. So it won't necessarily be a huge research paper or a huge research project, but really just gathering that awareness. And overall, the desired outcomes from this work group are that they just want to have a clear definition of really what ag land preservation is in the eyes of the people for it and people against it. They want to have a clear understanding of the playing field and who the players are. And then, of course, finally, just to identify the gaps of what's being done and who's doing it. So, anyone listening in or anyone involved, if anyone feels like they would like to join this group to add to the situational awareness, just let me know.
And this is a very, very important topic, I believe, is this preservation. But as we grow, all of the development that's going on, and it may be something that takes some sort of innovation into some of the rural areas to try to find a way in some of the alkali soil, how we can turn that around. We've got plenty of water in agriculture right now. It's getting it to the right lands and the right hands to be able to do what we need to do with it. So those are all issues that are very, very important as the ag land. Okay. Natalie, you had a report on the next item, did you not? The statewide community food assessment?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'm not sure there's a whole lot to report. We've had one meeting so far as a work group subcommittee, but we're having our next meeting tomorrow with the group. I don't know how many people were on that, Callie, but there seems to be a lot of interest in moving forward with some type of broader food system assessment. So our next meeting will hopefully being able to narrow down the type of assessment that we want to do, and then we can start determining what stakeholders aren't at the table that need to be there, and sort of forming our approach. But yeah, so that's all I've got now, but hopefully our next meeting I'll have more to report on that.
Thank you. Brad, did you have anything to add?
No, Senator, I didn't have anything else to add other than just to say, because it's such a large group and I know there's so much interest in it, feel free to just keep in contact with Natalie and I if anyone has any ideas in between meetings or is interested in a particular aspect of it. We're open to it, and we want to work with individuals as well as the group. So feel free to reach out if there's anything that we can do to further that along.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. Okay, Jack, innovations in production.
Great, thank you. So we've had one meeting, and we kind of reviewed where the production, innovation and production work group started, and looked at some ideas of where we might want to go. Originally, the concept around the production work group was the word innovation. So looking at things like what's going on in innovative ways to grow crops, especially specialty crops. Things like high tunnels and hydroponics, aquaponics, freight car farms, rooftop gardens, those kinds of things that are a little bit different than the traditional farming methods. And we want to continue to look at that a little bit. As you may remember, we did do a report on hydroponics about a year ago in the June meeting, and there is some funding. At least at the time, there was funding through the ARTO program through UDAF for high tunnel and hydroponic aquaponics. But one of the things we wanted to look at is what other kinds of programs are going on or still out there. There used to be a USDA fund for high tunnels. who is funding those types of innovative types of things. So that's one thing we wanted to look at. And then Dr. Hall had suggested the idea of looking more in depth into high value specialty crops in more rural areas. I think a little bit related to what you were just saying, Senator, about with some of the traditional farms and ranches in some of the rural areas, there could be some potential to transition, at least in part or a little portion, to some of the more high value crops. And Dr. Hall, would you be willing to just give just a little bit of an addition to that? Do you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Sure. Through USU Extension, we have a small farm program of extension specialists and county agents, and we have been working with a number of our growers and some of our traditional growers that have been doing beef and alfalfa and some of the grains, and encouraging them to participate in field tests and plots to be able to grow quinoa, to be able to grow more fruits and vegetables, to diversify their farm. Ruby Ward and Kenneth Curtis have done some wonderful research in agricultural and applied economics that have broken down just what 5 acre, 3 acre, 8 acre plots could be for fruit vegetable production, as well as some of the other specialty grains that are very popular now in our state, and working with our growers to have that information in their decision making, just letting them see the profitability of diversifying into some of those crops. Not that we want them to get rid of what they're currently doing, because we do have demand for our livestock, whether it be sheep, beef, hogs, poultry, but just letting them know we have other options that could be value added and very profitable for them in our state, and then trying to help them sell locally. So there's some research being done in our state, and resources provided to fact sheets and trainings and outreach materials with that information. And it was a thought to maybe just think about how we could help with specialty crops, because that's something our state does advertise through our specialty crop block grants, and our producers apply for those.
So I think one of the ideas was we'll continue to look at that in our next meeting, Senator Davis, but I think we want to see if we can maybe drill down a little bit and help the overall council have an idea of what all is available out there, and if there's an opportunity for us to maybe outreach to farmers and ranchers, help Extension a little bit with some of this effort that they're working on, to maybe do a little bit of transition, even if it's just a small portion of what a farm or ranch does in some of those more rural areas, so that we can expand the local specialty crop, especially production in some of those areas. So there's that part. And then one of the other areas that we talked about briefly and we want to follow up on is coordinating with Bjorn and with Linda and Kelly at UDAF is we would like to see what can be done, what we can do to help with getting more of the local, or more of the livestock meat into local slaughterhouses and packaging and distributed locally. There were a couple of areas where we know that we're sort of right on the edge of maybe a couple of different work groups, but and we'll take your guidance, Senator and Representative, but we've kind of thought that maybe the meat processing would fit well in the production work group, as opposed to maybe distribution or regulations or one of those. But if you want a different group to move forward with that, that's fine. But we were sort of thinking that might be something we could work on as well.
That would be good. I think the focus actually in meat in the state of Utah right now is really the processing piece, and how can we build that processors? How can we strengthen that, and instead of just the big guys, but really have some local, and I know part of that is a budget issue, because we need to have the inspectors to be able to do that, to keep it to keep them in place. And some of them don't want to be the small producers or processors right now, don't want to be a part of that because they don't want the regulation. And we'll get into that in just a little bit with Representative Handy. Is that pretty much?
We have one more item.
Okay, please.
So, and then our last item is also another one of those that could potentially be on the edge of a couple of different work groups, but it's the Innovation Center that has been talked about many times by Farm Bureau. We would love to kind of know where they are with that. At one point, they were potentially looking to partner with SAPA to use some of the room, the physical presence of the food hub in Salt Lake that SAPA was getting ready to start. We don't know where that is right now, but we would love to invite Dale Newton or somebody else from Farm Bureau to join our work group and maybe kind of explore that a little bit. And like, again, once again, that's sort of on the edge between production and distribution. But if you folks are okay with us moving forward with it, you know, I'd love to see if Callie could help connect me with someone at Farm Bureau. We could see if we could get somebody on the production work group. Well, what do you think, Senator and Representative?
You know, that's a great idea. And I know we've got a member from the Farm Bureau, a new member coming aboard, providing we approve his position and get a little bit from him, hopefully later on in this meeting. But that's part of it. I know I was talking to the folks that were going to do the food hub, and they're still interested. They do have a grant that is sitting in abeyance for equipment and everything that was donated by IHC Foundation to try to get it going. And it's still there, but they were counting on hopefully having some state participation in there to help put everything together. So that's kind of where that is right now. And
yeah, I'm in total agreement with what you're saying, Senator and Gene and Jack. I think it's great. It's a great direction.
Okay, that's our update. Unless Dr. Hall or Representative Handy, if you have anything else that I missed. Okay, that's our update.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Kelsey. Let's go to Callie now, and she's going to give us the update on the distribution.
Yeah, Ruby was unable to make it today, but she is good to go for the distribution meeting tomorrow. So we have 2 work group meetings tomorrow. And so she just wanted me to present quickly the overall purpose of distribution. So as you guys know, distribution has been one of our most active work groups, and that's where the appropriations requests have come from. So Ruby Ward is the team lead for that one. And the overall purpose, based on our discussion, was that this group is a subcommittee of the council, and as such, it works to support the food system through distribution beyond the farm gate, which includes researching the current distribution systems and identifying gaps in the system or methods of enhancing distribution, as well as highlighting innovative approaches, supporting the distribution system through facilitating collaboration and coordination among partners, identifying legislative needs, improving food access to Utah ag products, and improving ag producers' access to and use of distribution channels. So obviously the food hub appropriation and the farm to school appropriation, which we've already discussed, are part of this group. So they're going to stay on the agenda for this group for a while. And other than that, that's pretty much the overall purpose of the group. If you want to know more, definitely tune into our group tomorrow. I'm happy to send you the link if you're not already on it.
Thank you. That is a pretty broad stated committee working on so many different fingers in this whole branch of distribution. A big part of it. Any questions? Seeing any? Thank you, Callie. And Representative Handy on regulation.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I really shout out to you, Callie, for helping resuscitate these working groups and you know, forcing appointments and for people to participate. I mean, in the space of a week, I think we did about all of them, didn't we? And it really got them going. And we're still looking for some leadership in some of these working groups. But the one on regulation is what I'm going to report on here a little bit. In that, when one of my initial visions and thinking about the necessity of a food advisory council was that we were in the legislature in the pressure, and Simbri is on, and we've talked about this, but in the pressure of the legislative session, you have these bills come that it's really hard to get your head around it. I mean, let's just use something that relates to what we're talking about is, cow shares, or we had bees. I remember we went 3 committee meetings a few years ago about bee regulation. It's really difficult. And so one of my original thoughts was that I had gotten the idea of the Food Hub when I talked to the folks at North Carolina State, was that you take the potential related legislation and you run it through your local food advisory council just to vet it. And you look at the broad range of individuals we have here with all kinds of perspectives and all kinds of outlooks on things. And I think Senator Davis will agree, I think you just get a better product. You're not approving it, but you're just, bouncing it off. And so we're looking for opportunities to have this work group, if there's food related legislation coming down the pike, that we somehow, and you and I, Gene, you and I can't be aware of everything. We can't, but we somehow can get the word out that, hey, why don't you bring it in front of we only meet quarterly, but bring it in front of the local food advisory council. There's lots of experts there to just talk about. We don't have any approval process. We have no voting on anything like this, but just, look at Dr. Hall there and look at all of you that, could just look at these things and perfect the legislation, and maybe it goes forward, maybe it doesn't. So that was really the discussion that came out of that work group. Did that kind of hit it, Callie, the way that we had talked about it? Yeah, I think it did. And Simbri, are you there still? Is Simbri still on? Does she have anything to add? Because she's run her own legislation, pushed her own legislation, and to bring some of those things in front of the Food Advisory Council, I think would just be great.
That would be wonderful. Have we reached out to Legislative Research and General Counsel so that we're aware of some of those issues that may be coming down the pike?
Have not. Good idea. We need to do that. Good idea.
That way, I think we can get an upper hand on that before it becomes legislation, and give that input to and a little bit of guidance of the pros and cons of what the idea is.
Yeah, so, good idea. We need to do that.
What was?
Go ahead.
This is Maria Patterson. What was Senator Davis asking?
What was what?
Did Senator Davis just ask a question? Or I was trying to understand what he was saying about legislation coming down the pike.
Oh, what I was saying was, if we get hold of our Legislative Research and General Counsel office, we can ask them to give us any heads up on any proposed legislation that may be assigned, that may be coming forward, that we may want to take a look at before it becomes a bill, or even especially before it becomes a law. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, and Cimbria, this is Steve. When you were on that call, on that meeting, and we talked about it, and you're plugged in other areas where things are contemplated, and I think it would be helpful and make for a better product when those ideas, and maybe it's just an idea, maybe it's just here's a problem, we're looking for a solution, and maybe there are ways to run it through the Food Advisory Council and get this fabulous input from producers and all up and down the line that we have here to just take a look at these ideas. That's kind of the intent of that working group.
What I hope is, with all these working groups and this entire council, is that it's kind of a desperate. I mean, it's just hard. It's like they're in nooks and crannies and they don't belong to anybody, right? So, it's amazing. I mean, just like Sarah and I, we had no one to go to, and
Right.
and we saw, good came from that. Very innocently walking up there and having no idea, and having a representative that didn't know who Farm Bureau was, didn't know who Commissioner Adams was, didn't know, so I would, there's a whole group, sure, that's tuned into me, but our resources are so limited that I would hope that people on this council or in these committees would, if they hear of somebody struggling, or something isn't being able to be distributed, or they feel like they're not being treated fairly, or they don't have a voice, that they would say, hey, there's a food advisory council with a lot of people on there, and a senator and a representative, and there maybe legislation isn't the way to go. Maybe it's just really simply having UDAP be aware, the health department, or they, even our center can offer help, that, it doesn't always just, I think, especially for us, maybe it was the only way it would have happened. I don't know. But we have certainly done other things that haven't required bills to be passed, or, like this bill we passed the last session. We got, Farm Bureau was on board. They might not always be, but at least we would know that going in. Hey, look, Farm Bureau's opposed to this, but, legislators would understand that there's a group of people who still want to go forward with it, and that would all be out on the table before that short 45-day session started. So
I think that's excellent input, Simbri. I really appreciate that. And you've been at this now a number of years and have gotten a PhD in citizen legislative initiatives. But I think that you very, very well.
Yeah, I hope.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to do that, and that's my hope, is that there's so many people now involved in this local food movement that they'll find those small producers that have no idea what's available out there to help them.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Representative. Thank you for that report on regulation, and knowing that there's a lot of it out there, and there's a lot of it that is controlled by feds as well, that we probably need to be aware of, that stops us from doing some of that stuff. Okay, let's move forward with the agenda now and go to land use. Is Thane on?
So Thane asked me to present again. Sorry, like I said, today's been a COVID day. So I'm going to go really quickly so that the discussion on food access can be the priority. But we decided last week that we wanted to talk about land use just to help color that discussion. So give me just a second. I'm going to show you some maps. They're going to be fairly not detailed. You'll see the color. Let's see. Can you guys see this map?
Yes.
Okay, so I will send these out and post them on the public notice website as well. But I just have 4 images that Thane asked me to share just so that you guys can see a color-coded version of the land use in certain areas. So, for example, this is Box Elder County. And the majority of the dark green that you see, this is for ag land use. This is animal feed. So as you can see, that's pretty predominant. The color that's kind of in between this maroon color is for grain and seeds. And then the yellow is fallow or idle, and anything that falls under that category. And the lime green, which is really hard to see, are vegetables. And I know Thane's mentioned this a few times, but vegetables and fruits, as you can see, lime green and magenta are vegetables and fruits. They don't make a big standout on the map. Now, this will vary by county, obviously, but one point that Thane wanted me to bring up, and kind of how it relates to food access and food vulnerability, is that especially with fruit, and then even into vegetables and certain types of vegetables, in Utah, we don't quite grow enough to meet the need of our population. Substantially so for fruit, but definitely for vegetables as well. So while on the side of beef, we have enough beef to feed the state, plus we have to send a lot of it out. We don't with fruit and vegetables. So that's the point that he kind of wanted me to drive home. And so this one is Box Elder, and I'm going to pull up This is Davis County. And so here again, we've got that animal feed. And here you can see, right here, you can see a few pockets of fruit in Davis, but it shows kind of a similar show as Box Elder does as well. And let me show you Utah County. And of course, these areas are quite urban now, but still along the lake, and then of course down in the Spanish Fort Payson, Benjamin area. Again, animal feed is very predominant. And then fruits, we have fruits down here. And of course, this will be down where Rollies are, and Mountain Land, Payson fruit growers, they're down there. So we have quite a bit of fruit production toward the southern end, whereas Orem was an area that used to have a lot of orchards, and there's still some there, but Orem is largely urban now, and so that has moved south or just out.
Hey, Callie.
Uh-huh.
This is Commissioner Wild. Both Kelly and I have to get off this now.
Oh, perfect.
We have some meetings we have to attend. So
thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. Good to see you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
And then the last map is the Payson area. So this one, now you can see up close where the fruit production is. So obviously here's Payson, and then you have down to Santaquin and up through Genola, and then over here by the lake. So animal feed is still predominant. And in terms of, especially when we're talking about export and things like that, and obviously those of you who've been involved with the specialty crop block grant know you get a lot more money per acreage with those fruits and vegetables than we do with animal feed. I think a lot of our animal feed does stay local, but we do have a lot of exporters of animal feed. Those are probably some of our maybe top 10 exporters that are on my radar are exporting animal feed. So I hope this gives an idea of just a couple of counties and how the agricultural land use is separated. I know Thane said if you guys have really specific questions, send them to me and I'll send them on to Thane. But he hoped that these maps provide a little bit more information on where certain crops are being grown, and just to show you just how immense the animal feed growth is versus fruits and vegetables, which is a point that he's driven home to us a few times during the COVID response, just that there's a lot of research and interest in looking at how we in Utah can grow more food to meet our local needs.
I look at these maps, they're really interesting. I think it might be of interest if we were to put over the more densely populated areas with these maps to really give us an idea of where the pressures are against agricultural land and where the population growth is and how it's taken over so much of our ag land in the state of Utah. I think that might be an interesting scenario as we begin to take a look at how do we preserve this land? What can we do to preserve some of our agricultural lands in the state of Utah, and looking at population growth, as well as where the agricultural or fertile land is. I think that would be an interesting scenario. Thank you. All right. Before we start our open discussion, I'd like to go back, if we could, and see if is Dale Newton with us yet?
No, he was unable to join today. So I don't know if you want to move ahead with the vote, or do you want to wait until our next meeting?
Representative Handy, what are your thoughts?
I don't see any reason not to just have the vote. And I mean, he's the Farm Bureau representative, and let's just.
And he's coming to us from the Farm Bureau.
Yeah, exactly right. In fact, I'm happy to make a motion that we accept Dale Newton from the Utah Farm Bureau as a voting member of the Utah Local Food Advisory Council.
And as you vote, as Ed said, everyone just make sure name and your vote. And then Brad, I'm not sure if we have a quorum now that Kelly's left, but if you say yes with your name, Brad, I think Heather's on, but if not, I think you're okay to vote for Heather.
Would you, Kelly, take a roll call of the voting members so that we have that. I need a second, I believe, by our rules that we're operating under. A second to that nomination of Representative Handy's nomination of Mr. Newt.
This is Kelsey. I would second the nomination to the voting role of Dale Newton from Utah Farm Bureau.
Thank you. Okay, discussion. Not seeing any. Kelly, would you go ahead and do a roll call of the voting members?
Gene Davis,
Aye.
Gina Cornea,
Aye.
Brad Belknap,
Aye.
Jordan Riley,
Aye.
Kelsey Hall,
Aye.
Steve Handy,
Aye.
and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're good.
That's our quorum. Is that a majority?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll hopefully we'll be joined by the Farm Bureau member next month or next meeting. And would you, Kelly, let him know of our standing committees that are working and see which ones he might be interested in joining? Thank you. Okay, open discussion, it says here, on food. What do we have? Any discussion? Or is everybody pretty well talked out?
I'd be happy to address this august group temporarily. We've been, as you know, we've been working on Chenda Open Global Food Cooperative and its online farmers market now for about 3 years. Prior to that, we were trying to find funding for another couple of years. So we've been at this for 5 years or more and have sort of come to a point where we recognize that we now know what we didn't know, which is always a good thing, right? And right now the farmers market is suspended. We opened up and actually had quite a good growth period for about a month and a half. But like most people during the COVID thing, home deliveries became very important to a lot of people. And we lost our delivery network because they were too busy doing deliveries for other people. And what we have kind of concluded at this point is we have a working platform. It has about 34 vendors on it, at least ones that have set up stores on our platform. And we would be happy just to work with Farm Bureau or some other organization who has a broader reach than we do. It's been wonderful getting to know all of you and the power of your influence and whatever. I'm really interested that this kind of thing go forward. And so if we could see a way that someone could benefit from the work that we have done, we'd like to turn it over to them. And if Farm Bureau, I mean, they're doing an amazing job with some of their new programs here. If they want to, and they have a couple of on the ground farmers markets. If they would like to add an online market to their repertoire, it's theirs. And if any of you, the rest of you know of a way in which this might be usable by someone, it works. It's kind of a shame not to have it go forward in some way.
it's a great idea that you tried to bring to fruition, and I hope somewhere along the line we can get something like that going. That might be really helpful to the producer.
Well, it has actually a broad range of applicability. It's software that you can kind of run a food hub with it. And in fact, they've reached out to us and asked if we would like to join with them, but that we don't know when it's going to happen. I mean, the food hub is a great idea. It's much needed, but getting the funding and pulling all the pieces together seems to be very difficult. And so, kind of where we're kind of moving on to other things that we see that need to be done. But the delivery part, and this is where I think maybe a farm bureau or someone like that could be a real advantage, because farmers have trucks, and if they were willing to come together cooperatively, those people who already own refrigerated trucks, and maybe they're sitting in their driveway or something for a good part of the week, and those trucks could be kept full and moving. That would be a good way to build a distribution cooperative, so to speak. And I'll talk about this tomorrow when we meet as a distribution group. But there's just a lot of ways that we need to figure out how to do a shared economy. There's a lot of trucks out there, and a lot of them are just sitting idle. So if we could figure out ways that we can bring them into service and also employ more people, then a lot of this could work. And the biggest problem is just during the growth phase, because once this thing were to get large enough, it would be very easy to be able to afford that kind of distribution system. But in the startup phases, when you've only maybe got 6 or 7 deliveries in a week, then it becomes burdensome, and it's not enough to make it worthwhile to any one person.
And of course, that's
if
the
we can
beginning
figure out some way.
That's one way to. I mean, it's got to start someplace, and of course, that's the way co-ops always begin. I believe it's this way. Comments?
Exactly.
Or other.
So, all right.
Just open this up, rather than for this discussion, as always, as if we were in the same room together, is really just chime in and with your ideas and comments.
Senator Davis, this is Jack. I have, one comment. I think Cimbria might have touched on this early on in the meeting, but one of the things that a lot of the small vegetable producers are doing, especially, is they're just taking this upon themselves to either expand their CSA subscriptions, or start a CSA if they've never done one before, or do online markets with everything from Shopify to PayPal to Square to the do-it-yourself website services like Wix and Squarespace. It's become really easy, I think, for a lot of people to do their own e-commerce. And if necessity is the mother of invention, I think this COVID has definitely caused a lot of us to have to jump into the technology age, even as farmers. And so I, was one of Anchenda's vendors, but I think without speaking for anyone but myself, but I think if you look at a few of the small farms I know, we've all just sort of said, well, okay, they're working on ways to make farmers markets viable. That's awesome. Anchenda's working on a cooperative kind of thing. That's awesome. In the future, there might be a food hub. That's awesome. But right now, what can I do? And I think that's what farmers typically do, is they figure out how to take care of themselves and just make their own thing happen. So one thing we may want to consider is looking at what various farms and ranches are doing for online stores to sell their own stuff. I know if Bjorn were here, he could talk a lot about what they've done. They've sold a lot of stuff online this year, and I don't know whether that means we could help facilitate some sort of cooperative, like Colleen is talking about. Farmers do tend to be relatively independent, but I think that some great things are happening out there in terms of trying to get the food available to people, because there was so much uncertainty, especially in April, that we didn't even know if there were going to be farmers markets. So I think there's some wonderful things going on. I think we should maybe try to take a look at what some of the farms and ranches have done on their own and see if there are some ways we could help promote the same kinds of things for other farms and ranches, or promote some sort of cooperative. But anyway, I just wanted to add that thought.
Thank you. And I think not knowing what's going to happen at harvest time and where we're going to be with this COVID, probably now's the time to start thinking of those.
I think it's really important if we could possibly, because of this kind of independent spirit, which I actually honor. I think it's wonderful that people, have independence with it, and take responsibility for their own well-being. But on the other hand, I think it's also, if you look at it from the customer point of view, are they going to really want to spend the time to go around to individual websites in order to do their ordering? And this is the reason why we decided that we could increase the convenience factor, which is one of the things that makes a difference for people as to whether they will buy or not, is if it's convenient. They're already sold on the fact that they really want local food. And we had some really loyal customers that were basically telling us that they had looked around to a lot of different things, and they chose us because it kind of brought all of their pieces together. They wanted clean local food, wanted it fresh, they wanted it healthful, and they wanted it, to be able to be delivered to them. And what we realize is that we're just too small to be able to handle the entire picture of that. But if we could somehow work together with the rest of you, we've already got, the market piece. If we could just get better marketing and better delivery system, it would be a go. So that's kind of where we're looking at it. Kelsey?
Well, something I've noticed is I agree a lot with Jack. I've seen a lot of independent farmers and ranchers come together and develop their own online stores. For example, the Pony Express Market online, they've come together and they have an online store that you can order vegetables, fruit, dairy, bread, desserts, herbs, meats, eggs, beverages, ready-to-eat products, all online, and they're sourcing it from different farms and ranches. I'm seeing that done with a lot of ranchers. They've kind of come together and sold. But I've also seen a lot of individual ranchers develop their own online stores. Some of them I've actually worked with to develop their online store, their website, and their content and what they're producing for selling their ground beef and selling their steaks and roasts and things. But I'm also seeing like other businesses where they've taken away and said, farmers markets aren't viable. So this year I'm doing my online farm stand, and I've seen some great farm stands like Johnson Family Farms here in Cache County, and they sourced jams, jellies, vinegars, fruits, veggies, breads, meats from all sorts of producers from the county. And I think we're seeing a growth in this. I don't know if it's going to be stable and remaining, but I do think there are growers and ranchers developing those online markets. And like Jack said, many of them do kind of operate independently, or maybe with individuals that they've had partnerships with already existing, with business models that work well for them, trust relationships with people that they can easily work with in the county because they see each other already in their businesses, or they've been vendors at the through a CSA subscription or at the farmers market booths. And so I think that exists, and it has developed more through COVID-19. Some of it is just finding the right partnerships and the customers for it. And I've seen that grow quite a bit, and a lot of demand for information on my behalf during COVID-19 on operating for online stores and producing some resources on that this year because of that. So I would agree with Jack. What I'm seeing is the same thing.
You know, this may be an issue for a greater discussion with the innovations group, because this is really an innovative idea. And I've never heard of Pony Express before. Is that a local, or is that something that's a national?
No, it's actually local. It's out of Eagle Mountain. And I have some other farmers that have worked with me on this since March on new business models for their businesses. I've seen a lot of CSAs develop in our state also, which is nice because there was a time where we were seeing a drop in CSAs and membership and some retention issues. And I've seen a lot of them develop this year because of that. And Jack, I don't know if this is right, but somewhere in my notes under our production work group and our distribution work group, we talked about maybe doing some promotion of innovative farm practices and production practices to get the word out about these creative business models. Because I was looking at the purpose of the local food advisory, and we focused so heavily on that legislative portion the last 2 to 3 years that maybe we can help with our council on promoting those innovative practices and businesses, sharing with other farmers and ranchers in our state what is being done. Because many a times what I'm seeing from farmers is that they want to talk to others who've innovated it, beyond the extension person, beyond the professor. They want to talk to someone who successfully implemented it. And that was something that we briefly talked about as a goal maybe this year.
Yeah, Kelsey, I know that we had that discussion for a minute in the production group. I wasn't sure though if Representative Handy and Callie were thinking that promotion concept should be done more at the overall council level or from the production work group level. But I completely think that's some of the reason why I mentioned this, the things that are happening that I'm seeing on other people's Instagram pages and whatever, is there are innovative ideas out there, and maybe not every other farmer is seeing those. And so if we could help get that information out, it would be tremendous. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just don't know where it is going to happen, if we need to do it or where it should be.
Well, one thought is I've operated the USU Extension's COVID-19 website for all direct marketing farmers with all the resources, whether it's gleaning, financial services, different marketing models. I still have my 30% extension appointment in the state, and I can help develop websites and hosting of resources for small farms if we think that this could be an innovative way to help share stories and information for our producers. I'm doing some work on CSAs and accepting SNAP and on some farm to school components to help out our county agents. But it's just a thought that we could develop something and then have a source that can maintain it and be able to continuously work through it after the fact. But yeah, I didn't know if it needed to be a larger level or a smaller work group level, but that was on my notes to maybe start telling these stories so that then we have more anecdotal resources we can be sharing as a council.
You know, I think this is one of those issues that with the subcommittees, the innovation and producing and everything, to come together with it. I mean, this is how the whole discussion of having the schools participate in buying local and everything else, it came from these discussions. And I think the one thing that would really is to have our subcommittees put something together that's more solid, and something that we could, Representative Handy and I, when we report back to the legislature as a whole, that we could have that in our report that would just really give us some real construct to move forward on. So I see we're at hand on time. So is there any other issues or items to come before the committee?
I just wanted to make a quick announcement that we have an open voting position, another one. So we have Shane Bowler is unable to attend the meetings and really unable to be involved with his schedule. So we now have that voting member position open. If you guys know any meat producers who are direct to consumer, send them to the application.
Okay. There's a couple
Ellie,
of
did
people
you say
I know.
meat producers?
Yeah, meat direct to consumer.
I have a list of several direct to market farmers here that sell beef, goat, sheep, lamb, that I could offer you if you want. They're at the farmers markets and doing some of the local businesses. Do I email it to you, Kelly?
So
Yeah.
This is a meat producer. Is that the position? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the ranchers and farmers I'm thinking are like smaller scale meat.
Yeah.
So.
And they can apply if they go to boards.utah.gov. They actually create, if they don't already have a profile, they'll just create a profile very quickly, and they'll submit their resume. For a voting member, you have to send your application and resume. And then just so you guys know the process, once we get those, they're vetted. I vet them, send them to the Representative Handy and Senator Davis. They're approved at that level. Then they're sent to the governor's office for final approval, which can sometimes take just a little while because I believe they meet once a month to review. So
what's the deadline? Because I have a little listserv of meat farmers and ranchers I work with. When would you need that application?
I mean, the sooner the better. This is such a weird time for everyone. I know this is the worst time ever to be asking ranchers and farmers to hop online and do something like this, but ideally by next week would be great. But if we don't have enough to review, then we'll wait another week. But ideally next Friday would be great.
Great, thank you. And our next meeting will be scheduled for
assuming that there's not another special session that happens on that day, because we're 2 for 2 right now. But we're in August. Sorry, let me get the exact date up. August the 20th, Thursday, August 20th, same time, 2 to 4.
August.
And I think everyone.
August. Did you say August the 20th?
Uh-huh.
There is a special session.
No, are you serious?
Yes. Callie, what's wrong with you? No.
I don't know.
And that will probably be around the third Wednesday. So
yeah, there
is. So we'll probably move that one too. So it'll probably be the week after, and it'll be posted on the public notice website.
Okay, or the week before.
Yeah.
Because the next week I think is the pre-Labor Day weekend.
Okay, so maybe we'll try for August 13th then.
I was going to suggest August 13th because on my calendar I have a distribution work group meeting from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the 27th of August.
Yeah, and those, I usually try and move those around, but if we're meeting on August 13th, I might just leave those.
Perfect. Because
I'll just move it.
A nice segue to get prepared. And
thank you. A final motion? Representative Handy.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Terrific meeting today. Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor, it's non-debatable. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? I don't hear any. We're adjourned.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See you on the 13th of August.
Not before yet.